Welcome to episode 2 of Abstract Apes. And today we're going to be tackling topics. We're going to be talking about the philosophy of Stoicism, how you can apply it to your lives, what the philosophy actually is. And it's a topic that both me and Penef are really interested in, right? We've read a lot about it in the past.
Absolutely.
And we hope you take something useful from this podcast. Right? So, Penef, could you start by telling us, on the philosophical side, the more academic side, what is Stoicism about?
So, Stoic, in our modern times, when you hear the word Stoic, we get this notion of someone who is unemotional, right?
Yeah, so it's like avoiding emotion and just suppressing it in a way.
Yeah, so Stoics actually perceive emotions simply as physical attributes. And this is kind of in line with a lot of Eastern philosophy. And for this reason, Stoicism has been called the Western Buddhism. But we'll get on with this a bit later. So to digress with a fun fact, actually, the Stoics were very spiritual. We'll see their philosophy, but first of all, let's mention that they were very spiritual and that they were aware that they were part of something bigger. They were aware of the totality of the whole universe, and that there was something bigger than just individual fragments and individuals. So, segueing into the philosophy, they placed an emphasis on seeing the physical world through the prism of reason. And emotions are a part of the physical world. And that is why they see it just as simple physical attributes. And they were dualistic in nature. So they saw the soul and the body, the physical container, as two different things. So they believed in passive matter, that is nature, the physical world, and then some kind of active intelligence, and that is what you would call reason, consciousness.
Yeah, what I love about that is that they think you have a body which you are not entirely responsible for, right? You get into accidents, you might break a leg, something might happen to you, get a disease. But the only thing that you can control is this so-called soul that you're talking about, which is, your actions, your attitude, and all of these, notions of what a soul meant back in the day.
Yeah, and it's very important here that you say back in the day, they were very aware of what days they were lived in. So in those ancient times, a lot of the belief and philosophy was centered around myths, so gods. And it's very important when I continue about their philosophy, they consider Zeus and nature interchangeable. It's the same thing. So the gods and nature, they consider the same thing. So continuing on, they think that the soul is a divine touch, a unique gift bestowed only to us humans. So there is the passive matter, that is nature, all the animals, all the plants and stuff like that. And then we are the only things in this world that have the ability to see the underlying logic of this world.
Yeah, we're the only ones that have like the reason, the logical capability to make sense of the world. And everyone else is just acting from, I guess, impulse. It's just a part of nature, the thing that we can study and we can, know about and have, acquire knowledge of.
Yeah. So carrying on with this, we would agree that everything else is acting on a basis of stimulus response pattern, so deterministically.
Yeah, it can be studied deterministically. You can find the laws, what governs it, and then you can deduce things from that.
Yeah, and
yeah,
go on.
So that's like a lot of the academic side, right? It's what that philosophy actually meant. What are the foundations of the philosophy?
Yeah, and
but of course,
go ahead.
But of course, what really interests me is why is it practical? Why study in the first place?
Yeah.
Right. So what kind of teachings are there for people like you and me in the 21st century? Why is, I don't know if we both know that Stoicism has blown up in recent years in terms of popularity. People are engaging with it, even though it's an ancient philosophy. And I want to explore a bit about why do you think that's the case? Why is Stoicism such a powerful tool for many people? Like a couple of people in my head are, Tim Ferriss, who's a business guy. Like, what can a business guy learn from a philosophy that's more than 2,000 years old?
Yeah, well, from these metaphysical beliefs that they had, let's call them that, they derived one very important thing that we today can use. And that is the only thing that makes us different from these animals, which are governed by stimulus response patterns, is our ability to make choices. And that is what the reason kind of manifests itself into in the physical world. So the ideal world can be represented through our choices, through our knowledge to make informed choices.
Yeah, I love that. I love that they emphasize a lot on the fact that you have choice. The only choice you have is to choose your own actions and your own response to everything that's coming to you. And that's a very powerful idea.
Yeah. Well,
it has to do with what actions you can take, but you have to think deeply about what the right thing to do is. And then we can touch upon, what the right thing to do is, what virtue is in this case.
Yeah, I think in essence, Stoics just teach how to act instead of react, and what to do to not only react to external events and not be a puppet of your emotions and environment, but how to act according to your own reason and knowledge and ideas about the world.
Yeah, so in essence, they are really, spiritual and emotional people, so the practicing Stoics. The only difference is that whenever anxiety kind of comes into play or any irrational fear, they still feel it. It's still part of their being. However, the difference is that they try their best to abandon that anxiety, to overturn it through, going out of their comfort zone. And this is what I think both of us really like about Stoicism, is the fact that you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone to do what you know is reasonable, to do what you know is right and virtuous. And if that means, going through uncomfortable challenges, then we go ahead and do it.
Absolutely. In the end, going into that discomfort zone is just going to expand your comfort zone at the end.
So it's the reasonable thing to do. Yeah, it's to become competent in as many areas as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I like to consider every time I think about Stoicism is they think a lot about death and the implications that death has, to their philosophy. What does death mean for the way I should act in the world? So what is their position, on death? I think, what is our position on death as well? And what kind of implications does that have about the way we should act and conduct ourselves in the world? This is a deep question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just putting you on the spot here.
Death is very deep. Well, I'm just a practicing Stoic here, so I'm just going to say what I think about this through the prism of my own knowledge. I'm not completely in line with ancient Stoics. I have my disagreements with them here and there. But what I agree with them on here is that death is an external event, a physical event, that is not a part of the ideal world. So what we can do is only analyze and learn from death. So if everything happens for a reason, right, that's what Stoics believe, but enough about that. We can only learn from death, the underlying logic that we talked about. Well, death is a part of that, so we can learn from death. We should not reject it. We should. It's a natural event.
It happens to everyone, right? Everyone would eventually die. The human life is, you get born, a bunch of stuff happens to you, and you die, right? So that's the natural occurrence of things. And what's really interesting for me is, okay, one day you're gonna die. What does that mean for my life, for your life? If it comes to an end
Abruptly.
yeah, how does that change? Well, no, not abruptly. It's gonna happen anyway, whether it's tomorrow or in 30 years, it doesn't matter. There is this end, and it when you think about it, it looks to me as if most of the time you weren't born, right? You don't know what happens before that, and after your death, there's gonna be plenty of time after that. You're just stuck in that small gap of time. Your, I don't know, 80 years of life that you're gonna have on average, and how should you spend those days if you know they're gonna come to an end? That's for me a fascinating question.
I see. Well, in my opinion, I have a very strong opinion on this actually, but
I would like to hear it.
Sure, sure. Well, there are two ways you can look at it. There is a reason to my life and there isn't. If I agree that there is no reason to my life, then I have nothing to live for, and I'll just become... I fear that I'll become a nihilist, so I kind of don't allow myself to believe that everything doesn't have a reason. There is no ultimate purpose. Mm-hmm. So that's why I've chosen to believe that I'm here for a reason. And when you believe something like that, you can believe that you kind of just a part of the global plan, and whatever you do is going to be just a part of the plan. So it doesn't really matter if I die early or not. I think that's kind of an external event that I can't control. And about the time span of my life on this world, then I'm just going to live it as virtuously as possible according to my own subjective values.
I think that's a really strong statement to say, we're here for a purpose, we're here for a reason, it's part of a plan, especially with the 21st century understanding of like the modern world and modern science. So I don't necessarily stand there in that position, but what I do agree with you is that we have this life. So what makes sense, what is reasonable, at least the way I see it, is that we should strive to be as virtuous as possible, we should strive to be the best version of ourselves, because we only have this one chance, right? If I have to talk about my beliefs specifically, I believe that essentially nothing happens after death, right? That's the gospel of atheism. You just disappear from existence. If you try and imagine what experience happened to you before you were born, you wouldn't be able to reproduce it because you simply did not exist. And from that, it makes sense that after you die organically, you are going to disappear from existence. And what kind of implications does that have for your life? Well, to me, that means I have this one chance to be like all of these values that I have this one chance to practice those values, what makes sense to me, that what's right and what's wrong, and to be the best version of who I am. And I think this is a deeply, Stoic idea, to put it back in the framework of Stoicism. They thought that people, we are social animals. So we thrive in groups, and we should strive for not only the best for us, but the best for everyone else in the group. And this is where the idea of cosmopolitanism appears, right? Cosmopolitan meaning polis of the cosmos, or the city of everyone. The whole cosmos is encapsulated. The universe, exactly. And second, they thought that there's a certain nature that we can study, and we should study it through reason and logic, and we should acquire as much wisdom as we can throughout our lives. So this is where the whole Stoicism resonates with me. The whole philosophy is because it's grounded in this very powerful statement.
Yeah. So you don't actually kind of put that much thought into the metaphysics of their teachings, but you really agree with what they have constructed for practical ways of life.
Yeah, exactly. Because the way I think of it is there's a 21st century understanding of science in the modern world, and then Stoicism just fits very well within that framework to tell us how to act in this world. So This is where I find it, practical.
I had a question about something that you said. You said that I agree with your whole point about you having only one chance, but you disagree with me on us not necessarily having an ultimate purpose. And my question to you is, if you believe that there is no ultimate purpose, why do you do all of this? Why do you consider kind of living your life according to these virtues to have a point? Why do you not just how do you not just fall into a state of melancholy?
And state of, so I, like any other human, despite their religion or their upbringing or whatever, I as well go through stages of anxiety, depression. I go through stages of joy, success, and I experience all the the range of emotions from good to bad. But to answer your question, so do I need to think that after I die I would go to heaven in order to be good, to act well? Like, is that my motivation? I'm gonna be the most virtuous person I can just so that I can get to heaven.
I think having an ultimate purpose doesn't include what happens after death. I think we we consider ultimate purpose in the small time, your lifespan. Ultimate purpose does not regard what happens after death or what happens before your death. That is irrelevant about this question.
Yeah, that's great. So you don't focus on the afterlife, you just focus on the life we have.
Yeah.
And empirically, you and I would agree that becoming an addict, like an alcoholic, becoming, an abusive person, when you look throughout history, and also when you just run the simulation through your mind, what a person like that might be, like a psychopath. I watched this episodes from a series on Jeffrey Epstein yesterday with my sister. And do you know who Jeffrey Epstein is?
No. I just know the memes about him, but I don't know who he is actually.
He's a psychopath he died recently, like August 2019. But his case was really long, like about, I don't know, more than 20 years. They dragged it along. He had to go, he clearly had to go to prison. We had to punish him in some way. Probably if the death penalty was still around, he would have deserved, the death penalty. But he was an abusive person, a sexual predator and all these bad things. And I just run through my mind, what does it mean? How does it feel to be Jeffrey Epstein? And I don't want to be that guy, right? So to answer your question, what I do is I run through my mind. I think empirically as well throughout history, what kind of lives people have. And I just see what is the definition of the good life. I try to put down as best I could, what does it mean to have a good life? And to me, that doesn't include nihilism. That does include purpose. It's just that it's not the purpose of going to heaven. It's the purpose that I have this one life. So what kind of experiences do I want to have?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't believe in a purpose of going of like striving for something while you're on this earth just in order to do something after you die. I don't believe in that, obviously.
You just believe in a direct experience.
Yeah, kind of I
life.
guess. Yeah. That's where we kind of have our disagreements with Stoics, because they believed in gods. They were pantheists. So they believed that they had to get closer to divinity. They wanted to get closer to divinity in this lifespan. And we don't really care about it, I guess. We just kind of live our lives according to what is divine for us.
Yeah, I want to correct you there. So they weren't pantheists. So pantheists believe that there's only one God and that's synonymous to nature. I think you're talking about polytheism is the many gods.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And they weren't necessarily, so Marcus Aurelius, that's I think a good point to bring in Marcus Aurelius. So his book on his meditations, his own diary, is very inspiring. He's a practicing Stoic, and what he says in the book, as well as other Stoics, they say, I don't know of any rational proof that there are gods, but let's try and put it on a scale. How should I act if there are gods? How should I act if there are no gods? And let's try and find a way to
a middle ground.
yeah, that agrees with both ways. So they don't necessarily have a position on God, but they say let's be logical and find one way to live in the world that doesn't depend on whether there is a God or there isn't, or many gods in that matter.
Yes, but they still agreed about an ultimate purpose after life. That's what they lived their lives
After
about.
death.
Yeah.
No, so Marcus Aurelius says, well, he's the person, the Stoic that I focused on the most. So he says, when I die, I die. I don't know what happens. Most likely I disappear from existence like everyone else before me. So I just want to make sure that I'm virtuous here and now. And Epictetus says, don't worry about death, worry about lunch, because lunch is your immediate, in your immediate grasp. Yeah, so in that case, they don't believe in an afterlife either.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Actually, yeah, you've disproven my point. I think that's pretty fair to say that. I guess it's not that such a proven point that they believed in some kind of ultimate purpose. I guess because I know the quote of Marcus Aurelius that he says, if there are gods, they're going to accept me, and if there aren't, then I'll live on as a person of virtue in the memories of my family and relatives.
That's a very powerful statement, I believe. So Marcus Aurelius says that if, like, it doesn't matter if there are gods, would they consider to punish me? Would I go to hell? Well, no, because I believe that I'm acting the best way I could for myself and for everyone around me. So if there are gods, they would actually like me, if they're all powerful and all good and all seeing.
Because they created you.
I hope this is not a narcissistic claim.
No,
right, from his point, because he is virtuous in our eyes, right? I think if you study his character, he's an amazing persona to indulge yourself in, to study his life. And what I love about him is that he's a real person, right? He's not a fictional character. He's not Iron Man. He's not Captain America. He's not, like, even Jesus has fictional things, like he goes and heals people and takes out demons and everything. This guy writes in his own diary some stuff and then acts in the world as an emperor. And then you actually combine these two and you see what the person underneath is like, what his soul is like.
Yeah. I think it was, even for a Stoic, extremely progressive. I think he kind of separates the Greek Stoics and the Roman Stoics. So it's kind of, he's also kind of more practically focused.
Yeah, I think that was necessary because in the Roman Empire, if you think about it, as we said, the Cosmopolitan Society, he has to manage an empire that has multiple religions, an empire that has, one law that governs all the different people from like England to Egypt, this huge, like massive Mediterranean territory with all kinds of different people. So he needed to be progressive to manage that.
Absolutely.
Which is, expected. What do you think about like Marcus Aurelius as a character to study and as also a real person, to look at history?
I think if you look at him objectively, from the values that we would identify as helpful for humanity, I think he would be like the perfect role model. He was almost faultless when you consider his thoughts. There are some things that I disagree with. He kind of, the humanitarian part, because we have to agree that he lived in ancient Rome, so he kind of like agreed with slaves and stuff like that. But other than that, he was kind of the role model for virtue,
That would be interesting, actually. If you go back, because I don't know what his position is on that. Do you know actually if he thought some people are born like slaves, some people are born masters, or was he more a humanitarian, like everyone is born with kind of like this almost same nature, and then they kind of take on positions during their lives?
I think all Stoics believe that we all have the touch of God. Even they were very progressive because they believed that even women in ancient times, which was something outrageous to claim, no other philosophy had that in ancient times, that even women could be philosophers and Stoics. And they weren't rejected, but they were accepted because they believed everyone is included. And they, as I said, they realized the totality that mankind is kind of we're
humankind.
yeah, we were kind of all the same.
It's the moral philosophy of humanism. We are born with like the same attributes. The only difference is we take different positions in life because that's given to us by nature.
Environment, yeah.
So Marcus Aurelius just happens to be born the emperor of Rome. Epictetus, another Stoic, just happens to be born a slave. So they both accept their positions and they try to be the best slave and the best emperor.
Yeah.
Now, I just thought about this. Can that type of thinking make you stuck in a certain like box? Okay, I'm this. I take this position, so that means that's part of my identity, and I can't go out of it. Do you think that would be an impediment to go on and grow?
What kind of position?
Like Epictetus was a slave, and he thought of himself as his nature is to be a slave, so he'll be the best slave.
Oh,
doesn't that stop him from?
Oh, absolutely.
Like going up.
Yeah. Identifying with kind of what your environment dictates you to be is inherently wrong because it limits you. I think there is no argument about that. Because I think if Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius had a conversation, they would find that they were kind of equal men. And, you know, it doesn't...
Philosophy is the great equalizer.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think, yeah, it's bad to identify yourself with what life has set you out to be. And that's the idea of cosmopolitans, right? Because, you know, I'm not an Athenian, I'm a person of the world. And that was a big thing in ancient times. We have to not disregard that. Being an Athenian kind of dictated your whole life. It's like you were born a slave. It kind of had the same weight. So, yeah. So, yeah, go ahead.
I love the idea about the fact that we are born in a cosmopolitan society. It's really true now when it comes to globalism. Like both of us are here in the UK, like totally different culture, right? I used to study in Spain. If you travel anywhere around the world, you would notice that people are different, but at the same time, we all want the same things, right? That's again part of the humanist nature. We all want to be happy, secure. Maybe if you think in terms of Maslow's pyramid of like needs, everyone wants the same thing in their life. They just want to have a like stable relationship with the people around them, and also, you know, go out of the comfort zone. And there's always the same thing wherever you go in the world.
Yeah, fulfillment, right? Is that what I mean?
We all have the same idea for fulfillment. Yeah.
Okay. I have a question for you here. How have you applied the Stoicism doctrine of believing that you can turn obstacles into opportunities in your life? Do you have any examples?
Yeah, I can give you a small personal story. So even before I started reading about, even before I knew Stoicism existed as a philosophy, back in high school, I remember going into an interview for a head boy of the boarding house. And at that time, I started around that point, like year 12, year 13 in high school, to think about, you know, man, what does death mean for my life? And all of these deep questions that I don't know, is it normal for a 16-year-old to ponder about them? Probably yes, probably no, depending on on your personality. But I was thinking, like, really rationally, okay, what does this mean? And what my conclusion was that it doesn't matter what the outcome is. The only thing I can control is how well I prepare for the interview, how hard I work on myself, and what my relationships are to everyone else. And so I remember walking into this interview with this surge of like calmness that everything's gonna be all right because I've done everything in my power. And also, if I didn't get the position, then that means the best candidate would get it, and I would just have to work harder in the future. You know, good for them, because they're gonna take the responsibility of managing the boarding house, and I'm going to, you know, try and help him or her, of course, as well. And this whole thing, right, is such a bizarre feeling to get. It's pure feeling of calmness, like no anxiety whatsoever, because you know you have focused 100% of your attention to the things you can control rather than the things you can't.
Wow. Absolutely profound. Yeah. And Ryan Holiday actually described that very thing in his book Obstacle is the Way, which is considered like a bestseller. It was one of the books that kind of popularized Stoicism so much. And he kind of explains exactly like this. Your case would actually be like a case study in the book. It is precisely because you saw that obstacle, which would be even before it happened to you, the possibility of you not making it, the possibility of you losing that position, you kind of saw that as an opportunity to grow. You would say, you know, I would be even more motivated to work and study harder. And it's also just going to be the way of nature. It's just the better candidate is going to get it. But I accept myself because I have done what I can do about it. And yeah, you in your personal experience, you know that this kind of thinking about the world, the Stoic way, it kind of grants you this equanimity to external events.
Yeah, and what I love about it is I don't think there's any like contradiction or hypocrisy with these kinds of statements, because they also perfectly agree with our understanding of nature and the world in the 21st century. Like, we must be, you know, reasonable. We must act rationally as well to understand the world around us. You know, this is what science teaches us. And just if you practice it, you wouldn't become perfect. Like, I'm not saying that I still don't feel like anxiety, fear, but every time I'm in that situation, I think to myself, is this the emotion that I should be feeling right now, reasonably? And then if the answer is no, then I challenge myself and say, okay, there's something holding you back. You got to figure it out and just go ahead with what you're doing.
Yeah. And do you think your practice of meditation has helped you in that? Kind of taking a step back?
Yeah, from the habits episode, meditation. Meditation is such a great tool to achieve balancing out your, you know, negative emotion, and also to find that balance in your life. Be mindful of everything that happens to you emotionally. So just noticing your emotion is enough. You know, if you practice that on a daily basis, is enough to break out of that, you know, chain of just being stuck in a moment where you're overwhelmed by, I don't know, anxiety, fear, sadness, loneliness. Like, you imagine you think you're a failure in life. These are all stories that you tell to yourself, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. Meditation is a great tool to break out of that. And that's why I encourage a lot of people to just get a routine, start meditating.
Yeah, even without a routine, I've done it many times. And even if you're not the greatest, you kind of get this sense of fulfillment after you do it. Even if you kind of fail to do it, even if you manage to, let's say, out of 10 minutes, you get like 20 seconds of really focusing on your breath, you still get this really great physical sensation of relaxation. So it really can't hurt.
It's an emotion of the emotion you get, I think, is best described by feeling present. You are engaged with whatever's happening right now. You're not stuck in the past, reminiscing, thinking about all the mistakes, thinking about how you're a failure. You don't think of the future, all the anxieties that are there. And like, what am I going to do? I need to plan. I need to do that. What's going to happen? You are just in the moment, experiencing whatever you're experiencing and thinking about, what should I do right now? I'm just going to relax, maybe enjoy the view. Maybe I'm gonna walk back. You know, it's all about grounding yourself in the present moment. And I'm really keen on doing like a mindfulness session, like a mindfulness meditation exercise, because it's not that hard. You know, I've listened to a lot of those kind of sessions on the internet. Like Sam Harris has an application, Waking Up. We did a post on Abstract Apes with Headspace, the app, and there are many others that you can just listen, and the mindfulness practice is not hard to do at all.
Yeah, and the reason why I actually asked you about meditation is because Stoics actually encourage a lot self-reflection through meditation. They say, have a little self-reflection in the morning to see how your day is going to be and what you can learn from it. And then in the evening, you can have a self-reflection routine about what went well and what went wrong in the day. You can learn from it. And there is this event called Stoic Week, if I'm not mistaken, that ordinary people like us can take part in and kind of live the Stoic life for a week. And I'm really interested in that. And I do have...
Tell me more about it. I haven't heard of that before.
I have not researched into it. I read it in Donald Robertson's book. So I will definitely research into it more and tell you about it.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great kind of 1 week experience where you immerse yourself in that philosophy and see if there's something of value for you.
There is something of value actually, because he talks about the gains that you get out of it. And
gains.
Yeah, and he actually there was this, because it's a research project from a university, and they kind of experimented and observed 10% increase in the welfare of the people who have been participants in the Stoic Week. 10% improvement for a week is absolutely crazy, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, the 10% for a week, I mean, imagine you do it for life. Where are you going to go?
Yeah. Who knows?
After 10 weeks, what happens? You break the code.
Yeah. No, it probably has diminishing returns, I think. Because when I first heard about Stoicism, I instantly started applying it to my life. I said, wow, this is so great. And when you fully internalize it, it's like a hit. It really kind of spikes up first, and then you kind of get diminishing returns as time goes on. But you do become more calm, more peaceful.
Yeah, I think that comes exactly from what we spoke, from the feeling of I'm only in charge of my actions, my emotional response, so my response to emotions, and that's it. And I'm gonna make sure that I'm the best at, those the virtues that I think are important to maintain, and I'm not gonna worry about anything else.
Yeah.
So I can't control other people's emotions. Yeah. I can't control other people's actions. I can't control a lot of the outcomes. I can just control what do I do and what do I consider to be the right thing to do.
So you mentioned virtues. Do you want to talk about what Stoics considered virtuous and what kind of the overlaps of Stoicism and Christianity in that sense?
Yeah. So I'm gonna name a couple, and also feel free to add the virtues. So as we said in the beginning, man is created, or humans are created, social animals. So we should strive to for the betterment of ourselves and the people around us. So that's one virtue. Act in such a way as to benefit the whole of society, your immediate friends, your immediate relatives, but also on a larger scale. And the other virtues are moral heroism. So we need to act in accordance to our own, moral code, our own ideas of virtue, and we shouldn't accept any substitutes for that. So if you're being lazy and you're procrastinating, if we're going back to the first episode again, you shouldn't be doing that. So stop doing it. It's easy to say, but there is the cognitive dissonance there, isn't it? You shouldn't be binge watching YouTube, and you complain to your friends that you shouldn't be doing that, and yet you still do it. So what's the point?
Absolutely.
You need to break out of that loop.
Yeah.
Anything else that is considered virtuous for the Stoics?
Well, I think the main one is helping other people. I think that's kind of their main thing.
One I like.
Marcus Aurelius has a really great quote that I love that describes humans as the upper and lower jaws working together as teeth. And I really love that. Mm-hmm. So
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the main doctrine of Stoicism, but they also really advocate for self-discipline.
Self-discipline, that's a big one, yeah.
Yeah, so building up your self-discipline through voluntary discomfort, and as we all know, that is a great part of actually our modern lives. Coach hours and all these little things that people have started kind of marketing and popularizing, and there are certainly a lot of pros for that. What do you think?
What's your opinion on, cold showers and getting out of your comfort zone through cold showers?
Cold showers, I was actually kind of obsessed with them in the beginning of the year. I really did like Wim Hof because Wim Hof, for the uninitiated, is a guy who is a very adamant advocate of cold showers and mindfulness. And I really resonated with that. I tried breathing, as I know you have also done it. His
breath work.
Yeah, his breath work. And I tried it. I really loved it. So I said, okay, let's go for the cold exposure. He kind of says, a big part of the Wim Hof method is cold showers, cold exposure, and then ice baths and stuff like that. But what I don't like about it is he kind of makes these scientific claims that are not completely true.
If you look at him from the beginning, he was talking mumbo jumbo. But what I love about him is that he wanted the scientific community to approve what he was doing. So now he's changed a lot of the stuff he's saying. He no longer says that when you do the breath work, it oxygenates your blood and oxygenates your brain, because that's the opposite.
Yeah.
You are... what's the correct term? What are you doing to yourself, to your brain?
It's hypoxia. So you kind of limit the oxygen to your brain.
Hypoxia, yeah. So too much oxygen goes to your blood. There's not enough carbon dioxide to diffuse that oxygen, to bring it to the cells.
Yeah.
So you're hyperventilating. You're going into a state of oxygen depletion.
Yeah. We kind of digressed here. But getting back to cold showers, what I think about
on a tangent.
Yeah.
Stoicism video.
yeah, absolutely. No, cold showers are part of Stoicism.
Putting yourself out there, discomfort zone, living the best life.
Being grateful, that they kind of say, you're going to be a lot more grateful for the hot shower after that. So,
good one.
The cold shower, what I think about it, it's a skill. I think personally it's a skill to get in there and control your breath and be completely calm. And once you have done that, it kind of becomes a tool. It doesn't become kind of getting out of your discomfort, because it's already in your comfort zone to get in the cold shower. So it's not hard for you to do it. Once you've done it for maybe 2 months, it kind of just becomes a tool. So if you have to observe the scientific effects that get to your body, so like your core temperature, how it kind of reacts to cold water and stuff like that. And if that's your thing, if you like it, the physical sensation, well, that's great. I kind of have my own opinions on it, and I wouldn't want to skew the perception of the method for other people. I do encourage trying it out. It's a great method, and it's going to make you learn a lot about your body.
Yeah, I've been taking cold showers for the last maybe 2 months, almost on a daily basis, and I love them. You should definitely try them out. I don't want to be a guru. I don't want to preach, cold showers. So if you actually, do them for a couple of months, I think you would definitely reap out the benefits. And having said that, we're talking about going outside your comfort zone, doing uncomfortable activities. I think I want to end on a practical note, which is, have you heard of the exercise called fear setting?
I have, actually. The Stoics refer to it as negative visualization.
Negative visualization, yeah. So fear setting is the more popular now name of it because of Tim Ferriss. He's a business magnate, who popularized it. You can watch his TED talk on fear setting, and what he says is you shouldn't define necessarily your goals. You should define your fears. What are you afraid to do? Are you afraid to start that new project? Are you afraid to go out there? Are you afraid of being interviewed? Are you afraid of public speaking?
Are you afraid of failure?
And are you afraid of failure? That's a big one in a specific area. And write down what you're afraid of and what the worst consequences are going to be if you go and do that thing. Like, you're going to find that in some areas the fear is justified. Like, we all have a fear, I don't know, of getting a disease, getting into an accident, which will totally change our lives.
Butchered to death.
So, yeah, a lot of our fears are justified. But what you're going to find is, as Seneca said, we suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. When you outline your fears, when you do the negative visualization, you visualize the worst scenarios, and then you outline just, barely what can you do to prevent those scenarios from happening. What you're gonna find is that a lot of what's stopping you back is just irrational fears. So it's gonna be a lot easier to just go ahead with that thing that's stopping you.
Yeah, that's a great note to end on. Let's wrap it up. See you next time.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Yeah. I think that's it. Do we have like an outro? We can put the music in.
Yeah,
here.
let's do just a bit of cutting here. How do we end the episodes?
I don't know. How do you want to end the episodes? I think I like the first one. See you next time.
All right, guys. So thanks a lot for watching. Well, we hope you enjoyed, and we're gonna see you next time. Bye bye.